9.6 Solving Right Triangles. In this lesson, you will learn how to solve a right triangle and then use that to solve real-life problems. Solve a right triangle. To solve a right triangle means to determine the measures of all three angles and the lengths of all three sides. To be able to solve a right triangle, you have to know either of the following: two sides lengths or one side length and one acute angle measure. Let's look at our first example. In this example, we have two side lengths. When you have two side lengths and you want to find the third side, you use the Pythagorean theorem. Remember, your Pythagorean theorem is your hypotenuse squared is equal to a leg squared plus a leg squared. So plug in your hypotenuse. 89 squared is equal to, you know one leg is 80, square that, plus your other leg you do not know. Solve. 89 squared. 89 squared is 7,921, is equal to 80 squared, 6,400, plus your a squared. You want to solve for a, so subtract 6,400 from both sides. To get rid of your square, take the square root of both sides. And then the square root of your 1,521 is equal to 39. So now you have your last side of your triangle. Nothing new about that. But to find our angle measures, this is something that we've never done in our class before. To find our missing angle measures, just choose one of your acute angles, either A or B. We're going to choose A. So let's highlight angle A. Then from angle A, determine the two sides that you were given. From angle A, this side that's 80 is our adjacent side, and this side that's 89 is our hypotenuse. Then you want to determine, using these two sides, adjacent and hypotenuse, which trig ratio could you write. Remember your SOHCAHTOA to help you remember what sine, cosine, and tangent are. So using our adjacent side and hypotenuse, we would use the trig ratio cosine. We would say the cosine of angle A, the angle we're wanting to find, is equal to our adjacent side over our hypotenuse. Now, just like solving any other equation, we want to isolate the variable. Notice where your variable is at. Your variable is the angle measure, and you want to isolate A. So you need to use the inverse operation of cosine. The inverse operation of cosine is called inverse cosine. Taking the inverse cosine on your left side would cancel out cosine, and you would be left with just the measure of your angle on the left side. But whatever you do on the left side of your equation, you must also do on the right side. So we would take the inverse cosine. Inverse cosine is written like this. Cosine with the raised -1 means inverse cosine. You would do the inverse cosine of your 80 over 89 ratio. Now, using your calculators, you would hit your shift cosine. Before hitting your shift cosine, remember to make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. If your calculator is not in degree mode, hit your shift mode button. Make sure you hit option 3 for degree. Make sure that your calculators are in degree mode so that you'll get the correct answer. Now, to get to your inverse cosine, hit your shift cosine, and on your calculator you should see cosine -1, indicating that you have the inverse cosine function. You want inverse cosine of your 80 over 89, so you can punch it in as a fraction, 80 over 89, or you can punch it in as a division problem, 80 divided by 89. Here your equal sign, and remember to round to the nearest tenth, one decimal place. You should find that the measure of angle A is equal to 26.0 degrees when rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay, the triangle is still not solved. We have one more angle to find. To find the last acute angle, remember that in a right triangle, or in all triangles, first of all, that the total angle measure is 180 degrees. And in a right triangle, the right angle uses 90 of those degrees, so you have 90 left for your two acute angles to share. So your two acute angles, angle A and angle B, are complementary, meaning that together they total 90 degrees. Since you know that angle A is 26 degrees, that plus angle B has to total the 90. So subtract the 26 degrees from both sides and find the measure of angle B. 90 minus 26, you would find that angle B is 64 degrees. Now, because you know all three side measures and all three angle measures, this triangle has been solved. Let's move on to our next example. In this next example, notice that we only know one side length. We only have the measure of this side over here. Only have the measure of this side, FE, and that we know this acute angle, angle E. What we want to find is how much is angle D. Find the measure of angle D and find sides E and F. Let's start by finding the measure of angle D. Because we already know one of the acute angles, angle E, we know that the two acute angles together have to total 90. So finding the measure of angle D can simply be found by subtracting angle E from 90 degrees. Angle D will be equal to 90 minus angle E. Angle E is 31 degrees, so 90 degrees minus 31 degrees, and you find that angle D's measure is 59 degrees. So now you have all three angles. What you need to work on is finding your sides. Let's start by finding side E. Using the angle that we were given, the 31 degree angle, identify all three sides of your triangle. The side labeled E is your opposite side from the 31 degree angle. The side labeled F is your hypotenuse. And the side with the measure of 8 is your adjacent. You always want to use the side you are given and the side you want to find. Since we want to find side E and we were given this measure of 8, we'll use our opposite and adjacent sides. Opposite and adjacent, remember, is tangent. Tangent is equal to your side opposite your angle over your side adjacent to your angle. So the tangent of the angle that we're using, tangent of our 31 degree angle, is equal to the side opposite that angle, E, over the side adjacent to the angle, 8. You want to isolate your variable E. You want to get rid of the dividing by 8, so use the inverse operation. Multiply both sides by 8. E will be isolated and will be equal to 8 times the tangent of 31 degrees. Using your calculators, punch in 8 times the tangent of your 31 degree angle, hit your equal sign, round to the nearest tenth, and find that side E is 4.8. Only one more side to find. Again, beginning from the angle that you were given. Beginning from the angle that we were given, we want to find the hypotenuse, and we're going to use our adjacent side, the side that we were given. Adjacent and hypotenuse, identify which trig ratio you would be using. Adjacent and hypotenuse, you would be using cosine. So the cosine of your 31-degree angle is equal to your adjacent side, which is 8, over your hypotenuse, which is f. Notice this time where your variable is at. It's in the denominator. You always want to multiply by your denominator. So multiply both sides by the denominator f. You end up with f times the cosine of 31 degrees is equal to 8. Your variable is still not isolated. It's f times the cosine of 31 degrees. So you want to do the inverse of multiplying. You want to divide. Divide both sides by the cosine of 31 degrees. F will be isolated. You'll end up with 8 divided by the cosine of 31 degrees. Punch it into your calculator just like that. 8 divided by, hit your cosine button, 31, hit your equal sign, rounded to the nearest tenth, you'll find that f is equal to 9.3. Hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, you can message me on Facebook, and I will see you Tuesday.